Oh my god. Why they gotta do this to me, man? Why they gotta make me do this? Alright. Well, this video right here, as you can tell by the title, is gonna be the end-all be-all guide for channels, alright? I've seen a lot of other tutorials out there on YouTube, and, you know, creative mode people, their thoughts are disorganized, they're making it too complicated, all that BS. So this video right here is gonna clear the air on channels. From the ultra basics, you know, how to just hook one thing up to channels, so, you know, simple thing like that, to some of the more advanced things, like, you know, making multiple things happen at once, or how to automate your channels to get them all going without any type of player input involved. And, you know, my goal here today is to just make a video that anyone could understand, because, you know, if I didn't have hours to put into this shit, I would be really confused by channels myself. So I'm here to clear the air for you guys, for you people like me, and really make this easy to understand, alright? Let's get it.
What did you want me to say again? Okay. Don't forget to use the code HK21 in the shop.
Firstly, what are channels? Channels are essentially what every other fucking game on the planet just calls triggers. And what triggers or channels are is a means for linking two or more devices together through like an invisible frequency. So here, this list on screen right here is a list of everything that is currently in the game which has a channels function. So don't get overwhelmed thinking that channels, you know, they work with every single object in the game. You're actually relatively limited to not even everything in the device section, you know, just a few choice things which have channel functions. And to begin with, we're going to look at channels as simply being an on or off switch. They can be much more than that, but that is their primary function. So if we look at the monster spawner here, one of the things that are compatible with channels, when we scroll down to the bottom of the settings, down to this section right here, as you can see, we have the two settings, enabled when receiving from and disabled from receiving from, where enabled is obviously going to be the on switch, and disabled is going to be the off switch. So let's set things up for just the most basic channel function that I can possibly imagine, alright? We are going to head over to this monster spawner here, and we are going to set it so when it receives a signal on channel 1, it is going to turn on. With, you see the enabled? That's the on switch in this case. When it receives a signal from channel 1, it's turning on. Now, we have to set up something to send out that signal. And what we're going to do, we're going to set this Illuminati pyramid here to transmit that signal. So when we set this to channel 1, because they're both on channel 1, these are now linked together. So when we start the game here, grabbing the pyramid is going to turn the monster spawner on. So as you can see, we walk near it and nothing happens. And now when we grab this, the signal is sent and this turns on. And that is going to be the basic channel function. Something is transmitting a signal and something is picking up that signal and interpreting it how you will. So now that we got our super basic example out of the way, it's also worth mentioning here that just because this monster spawner interprets channel 1 as an on switch, doesn't mean that everything else on channel 1 also interprets that way. So we're going to throw down another monster spawner here, and we are going to set this spawner to interpret the channel 1 signal as an off switch, alright? So when we head down here, we're going to disable when receiving from channel 1, and for the hell of it, we're also going to destroy the spawner when it receives one. So now, this little pyramid right here, all it's doing is sending out a signal, okay? Don't go full retard and think that it's just sending out an on signal just because this thing over here is interpreting as such. It's just sending out a signal, and on the receiving end, that is where we set what that signal is interpreted as. And this is also important because it shows you that multiple things can be linked onto the same channel, which is useful because as it currently stands, we only have 8 channels accessible to us. So now, when we grab this, this is going to get destroyed, and this is going to turn on. And as you can see, it functioned as intended. So before we move on to, you know, the advanced channel work, you know, the big baller shit, I do want to mention that you guys should look at all the different devices and see which channel functions each of them have, because some of them, or well, most of them have functions outside of the on-off switch. So for instance, when we throw down the explosive device here and head to the bottom, as you can see, it only has one channel function. It explodes when receiving from. And this is something unique to pretty much just the explosive device and, you know, a couple other ones. But it's not going to be a setting that's on everything. You can't make it so a fucking coin explodes when you grab a channel, or when it receives a signal from a channel. So, you know, look around at the different devices, familiarize yourself with what they are all capable of doing, and yeah, that'll help you figure out kind of the limitations of your map. So without further ado, let's head into the big baller section of channels. Whew, all right, it's about to get a little messy here, okay? So don't get overwhelmed. We're gonna try to take this as slow as possible, but this is the advanced section, so you're probably gonna need to have a pretty good understanding about the stuff we covered earlier in this video to grasp what is going on here. But it's not like the most complicated thing in the world. Just keep the linear thinking that we talked about at the beginning in mind of channels being on-off switches, okay? So in the beginning of the video, we have a bridge that is flickering on and off as long as Fortnite doesn't crash. All right, take two. So the bridge here is flickering on and off, and this is controlled by a channel that is outside of the map. And if we head down here, here we have a basic channel that we talked about in the beginning of the video. Two things linked together. So we have a trigger device here that is set to explode the door when it is activated. So boom, just one little link together. This coin that is inside here is going to disable this bridge flickering on and off and spawn monsters at the same time. So there's two channels hooked up to, or excuse me, two things that are hooked up onto one channel when you grab this coin. Monster spawning and the bridge set to be turned on. So as you can see here, two things are activated at once. So let's take a look behind the scenes about how we both made the bridge flicker and how we set that coin to work and make all of this possible. Alright, so let's break down how all this works. And it is going to be a little bit confusing, but just do your best to keep in mind that this is all just functioning as on-off switches. It's just a bunch of on-off switches chained together on like 3 different channels or so, okay? So the bridge is made out of a barrier block, okay? We just set it to blue because, I mean, come on, looks sexy that way. The barrier block, of course, has channel compatibility, and it is set to turn off when it receives from 4 and on when it receives from 5. Up here we have the on-off switch. So here's 4, so it's turning it off, and 5 is turning it on. So every time the music sequencer passes through it, it's going off and on, off and on. And this loops infinitely. But we have to make it so that when the coin is grabbed down here, it's going to stop the loop and keep the bridge on, okay? So when we head into here, and we're just going to grab that coin and bring it out. As you can see, when the coin is grabbed, it's transmitting a signal to 3. So what do you think 3 does? Well, it's going to turn off the sequencer. So now, when this is receiving from 3, as you can see, it's set to stop. So no longer is it going to be looping together the off and on. So this off switch will never be hit again. But we need the on switch to be hit. Which is why we have this one right here. So this is set to turn on 3. Okay, so let's just recap here. The coin is going to send a signal on 3. Okay? This one interprets the signal as turning the music sequencer off. This one interprets the signal as turning it on. So when this one turns off, the thing that controls the bridge turning off is never going to be hit. This is going to turn on, which is going to pass through this thing right here and keep the bridge on. So this is what I mean by chaining things together. Oh yeah, and then we also threw monster spawners on 3 just to make things look sexier. So this is what I mean by chaining things together. this signal that is being sent by channel 3 is controlling both an on and an off switch. Likewise, this is a chain of events right here. This is 2 channels that are controlled by one thing right here. So you can really get fancy with channel work and everything like that. But even for this like complicated example, it's just a bunch of on-off switch chained together to create one big sexy example that I can lead the video off with, and that apparently crashes my fucking computer. Alright? So, I know this is going to sound confusing. I try my best to break it down in a way that you guys can understand. And yeah, it is probably going to be confusing if you don't have a grasp on part 1. But this is mostly just to show you guys what's possible, and to give people that understood part 1 an idea of what is possible, and like how you would chain multiple things together. Okay? And with that, I'm going to send you guys off into the world. I hope that you walk away from this video with a little bit of better understanding of channels, or at least have a better idea of like how to frame your mind around them. And you know, you're gonna fuck up a lot when it comes to setting up your own channels. But you know, I'm as dumb as they come, and even now I have an understanding of channels once I've worked with them a little bit, and even still I mess up on them like all the time. While making this video, I probably messed up on every single take, because they're kind of complicated to wrap your head around. But you know, work with them a little bit, try your maps out a bunch of times to get a better grasp of them, and eventually you'll start to understand how they work and the different things that you could do with them. So I'm going to leave you guys off here. Thank you guys for watching this all the way through. Please subscribe for some of the best Fortnite creative content on YouTube, okay? Tired of living in Blue Drive's shadow, okay? Your boy has some content to offer to the world. So thank you guys for watching. Please sub. Yeah, come through on the streams. If you're a creative guy and you want to show off some maps, use support creator code HK21 in the shop. And I love you guys. So peace.